Boys and girls, now it's time for our missionary story. So I want you to sit up really straight, pay attention, take it away.
Well, hello. I'm so happy to be with you today. We are just 2 lessons away from finishing our story about Nate Saint and the missionaries that were with them. Last week, we got introduced to all of the missionary friends that were working together on Operation Aka. We have Nate and Jim and Ed and Roger and Pete and their wives, and they were all working together to get the gospel to a certain group of people called the Inca Indians. And they were resilient about it. Dioma was helping Nate's sister Rachel, trying to learn the language, and they had been planning for weeks and months and years and flying around and trying to figure out where the Aucas lived and what they could do to reach them with the gospel of Jesus Christ. You'll remember that in this village there was no copy of God's word, and they were a very dangerous people, a very, very dangerous people. But these missionaries knew that they needed to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ, and they wanted to do whatever they could do to get these Indians the gospel and the good news of Jesus Christ. So Nate and his buddies thought of a good plan. They were talking to Dioma and trying to learn how to say nice things like, "We are your friends, we want to help you." So they had practiced that, and they thought it would be a good idea to deliver them some goodies. So Nate figured out how he could fly in circles and deliver them and drop off some things that they might need. He thought of all kinds of plans, like if they hung onto the string and wouldn't let go. So he found a way to release the goodies when it became close to the land that they were at. And sure enough, that's exactly what they did. They would fly around and around and yell those things that they had learned from Rachel and Dioma, how to say, "We are your friends, we want to help you." And they would drop off nice things for the Aucas. Now, the first couple times when the Aucas would hear the airplane coming, they would go and hide because they thought people were out to kill them. Everybody wanted to kill them because they killed all kinds of people. But eventually, the people would come around to receive the goods that Nate would drop off. And they were getting closer and closer, and they knew it was about time for them to make contact with these Indians. So last time they dropped things off at the Aucas, they had come out and were all gathered around, and they thought, okay, this is good. So they went home to their wives and they said, "This is the time. We are going to land and try to meet some of these Inca Indians." Can you imagine how exciting that would be? They had spent many years in preparation for this, and oh, they were so excited. So sure enough, Nate wanted to help the Aucas, because he loved them very much. So the last time they went down, they circled down and they landed. This man came over to the plane, and of course they didn't know what his name was, but they presented the food and the gifts to the Aucas. Nate used his camera to take pictures of all the people that came around the plane. They decided that there was this man, and he kept on pointing on the plane, and he acted like he wanted to go fly. Now, this man's name, they didn't know what his name was, so they said, "We're going to call him George." So George wanted to go for a flight. So Nate put George in the airplane, and he thought, "Lord, what if he tries to kill me while we're up there?" But he prayed about it, and he thought, "You know what? I'm going to take George for a spin, and maybe that will show his people that we want to be their friends." So sure enough, he took George on an airplane. George climbed into the airplane, and he started talking really fast and pointing to the sky. He wants a ride in the airplane, Nate realized. So sure enough, Nate took George for a flight around the Auca village. George was very happy. He smiled and shouted to the people watching from the village below. They were all very excited to see these missionaries. They seemed friendly. It was amazing. After George and the women had left, the missionaries thanked God that they were able to meet some of the Aucas. They didn't know George's plan. You see, George was hated by many of the Inca Indians because he was a vicious warrior. And he had killed many of their family members, and so many of the Aucas wanted to kill George. So George thought Instead of having those men angry at me and wanting to kill me, I'll make up a lie about these missionaries, and they can kill the missionaries instead. So that's what happened. When George landed, he told them in their language, "We need to kill them." The other Aucas knew that he might be lying, but they were angry and they decided they better kill the missionaries instead of killing their own tribe, their own Inca Indian. The next day, Nate flew over the Inca village just like he had done before and landed on the beach. "They are coming," the Inca said. "They are coming." The husbands asked their wives to pray as they were so excited about being able to meet more Aucas. But at this time, the Aucas didn't come to be their friends. The Aucas attacked the missionaries and killed all 5 men. But when they killed the men, they said there was something different about these people. They had guns. They could have easily shot us, the Aucas thought. They didn't even try to fight. They were different. Instead of fighting back and trying to kill the Aucas when they were attacked, the 5 missionaries had let themselves be killed so the Aucas could have a chance to hear about Jesus. When the wives of these Operation Aucas had heard this news that these men killed their husband, they did not seek revenge. There was a forgiveness from the Lord, and they still loved these Indians, and they still wanted them to hear the good news of Jesus Christ. The death of Nate and Jim and Ed and Roger and Pete shocked people all around the world. As a matter of fact, news reporters came from all over, and newspapers and all kinds of information was sent out about these missionaries, how they had one goal in this Operation Inca, and that was to see Inca Indians hear the gospel of Jesus Christ. As a matter of fact, if you take out a phone or look on the computer, Operation Inca, a whole list of stories will come up that tell this exact story. You could look it up today. Nate and the others hadn't wasted their lives. As a matter of fact, it was quite the opposite. God had used them to help thousands of people start praying for the Aucas. And he also used that story for many people to become missionaries. You see, God used their story to help Dioma too. Dioma saw the pictures in the newspapers of those pictures that they had first taken when they arrived on the beach. She saw that Rachel didn't hate these people even after killing their own brother. She saw that she loved her enemies instead of wanting revenge. What a testimony that was. And as Dioma was looking through the news articles and looking at the pictures that were taken, she, with tears in her eyes, pointed and said, "That's my aunt. That's my sister." Dioma told Rachel as she pointed to the picture, Dioma's family was alive. She wondered, is my mother alive too? Would Dioma ever get to see them again? Would her family ever hear about Jesus? Come back next week. We're going to finish the final story, and it's entitled The Rest of the Story. Don't leave us now. There's an exciting part that we'll learn about next week. I pray this has been a blessing to you. We'll see you next week.